So, the other day, someone asked me what would I want if they did a Fallout 3 remake the same way they did the Oblivion one. And I thought, wow, that's an amazing idea for a video. I can't believe I didn't think about that first. I am dumb. But yeah, the Oblivion remake, that was just strange because I remember Todd was so ironclad, being all like, no, we don't want to remake games. Games should be experienced the way they were always intended to in their original form. And I was like, I don't like this opinion at all, quite frankly. But if Todd has his principles, Todd can have his principles, I guess. And I suppose Daddy Microsoft has said, nah, Todd, we need to make some good remakes. We need to actually make these games playable on modern hardware without the weird jank and looking like shit, basically. So Todd put on the gimp mask and let Microsoft go to town, remaking Oblivion in a way that doesn't look like arse, basically. And I'm actually a big fan of this, because I really don't like the idea that you've got to mod these games to high hell to actually make them playable. It's a bit of an issue with these old Bethesda games. Everyone always makes the joke, oh, the community just fixes all Bethesda's problems. And I think it really is a problem, especially when you come to play Fallout 3 and Oblivion. Because I remember when I first tried playing Fallout 3 on PC, after, you know, playing it on Xbox for so long, I had to get Emily to mod it for me so it would actually run properly. Because apparently, I think it was like 2012, 2013, I was trying to do this. It wouldn't work natively on Steam. Now, I don't remember why exactly, maybe it was a me issue, but just the fact that you couldn't just go boop and it plays was a bit of an issue for new people getting into the game. The best thing and the worst thing about PC gaming is the way you can just mod everything in any way you want to change the experience. It's great if you know what you're doing, but if you don't, oh my god, is it a pain? And I am not quite that capable. You know, I draw the funny Vault Boys. I don't necessarily know what I'm doing with modding most of the time. So I think Microsoft getting the beating stick out and making Todd actually remake his games in a way that are compatible with modern systems is probably for the best. Now, the question that's on everyone's mind but mine for some reason is, will they eventually do this to Fallout 3? Now, I know they did that update a while ago that made Fallout 3 compatible, and I thought, well, this is as far as Todd's ever going to go, just because he doesn't like remakes. But if Microsoft are now pointing at him and saying, do it, we might actually get one. Now, weird timing for a Fallout 3 one, because I think because of the Fallout show, because Season 2 is coming out and going to focus so heavily on New Vegas, I would think it would be probably in their best interest to remake New Vegas first, or at least very close to the release of the Fallout show, like maybe a couple months after, because surely anyone who's played or watched the TV show, they're going to want to go, oh yeah, I want to play this new Fallout New Vegas, I want to see what happened in the show and the game. But if they're not already working on like a Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas remaster, it's very unlikely they'll get it out by December when the show is going to come out. So there's probably a very, very low chance that we're going to get that anytime soon. But if we are, what do I think they'll add in and what do I want them to add in? Well, based on the Oblivion one, I think it'll be a lot of quality of life changes, along with a handful of like little lore things they'll pop in there just to make the universe feel a little bit more alive. I'm going to be real, the things I think they will add and what I want them to add are two very, very different things. So I've got a small list here. I'm going to start off with the things that I can guarantee you 100% will be in there, and if not, you can throw things at me. And then as the video goes on, I'll add more and more crazy things in there, up to things that I think will never be added, but I think will be fun to have in. So we'll go from one side of the spectrum to the other, starting with Fallout 3's iron sights are unironically one of the worst part of that game. It feels so alien going back there and not being able to shove your gun up your nose. In one of the really old making of Fallout 3 videos, Todd talks about, or someone in Bethesda talks about, the way they did that so the difference between what you can do and your character can do are enforced. Because if you're like a god at these sort of FPS games, you can just run around like winning at everything. Which is a real issue, I do sort of get that, but I think it just makes the game a real drag to play. You know, like when you play like another sort of RPG, like whenever I go back to play Kingdom Hearts, like, a weird comparison, I know, but like, you got that really dinky little 3-hit combo when you start playing the game after a while. You're used to like these big old combos you can do by endgame, and then when you go back, it feels so sluggish because your character is so low leveled. It's the same thing with Fallout 3 now. It's like, well, all my guns, the spread on them is like astronomical. I feel like if I aim at something, it might shoot like 180 degrees behind me somehow. But the primary reason it doesn't feel good is because when you hold right click, you don't hold the gun in front of your face. Your character just sort of like leans their neck forward, and it just feels weirdly clunky, and I don't want to use the term unrealistic because nothing about this game is realistic, but at the same time, I feel like if I was in this world, I would at least be like, right, I'm going to use the sights on this thing for what they're made for. I don't know why you don't have the ability to do that in vanilla, because it's really annoying having to mod that in every time you play Fallout 3. Like, whenever I go back to play Fallout 3, I'm always playing it through the Tale of Two Wastelands, because New Vegas' engine just adds so many little quality of life things that I'm just like, it's really hard to go back to this game without it. Like, I would bet my left nut that if they're going to change any anything in that game, it's going to be the iron sights. If they release Fallout 3 remastered or remade or whatever the heck you want to call it, and there's no iron sight aiming, I am going to be like, that Microsoft daddy is going to be mad at Todd for not fixing one of the really glaring issues with that game. Like, over time, I've seen people defend various things about Fallout 3 that I'm always like, I'm not sure why you defend that. But at the same time, I've never ever seen anyone defend the lack of iron sights in that game. So if you're going to change anything, if Todd held a gun to me and was like, right, Leroy, you've got to pick one thing we're going to fix, he'd be like, iron sights, Todd, please. Now, I'm mostly so laser focused on this because I think it would be the most basic thing to fix and the most effective, because it would basically, because I don't think they're going to like retune the gunplay altogether. I was going to put that on the list, say, oh, retune the gunplay to make it a bit more smooth. But I think the clunkiness, even though I don't like it, it's still part of Fallout 3 because, well, New Vegas's gameplay is also pretty clunky, but the iron sights really change it and make it feel like, okay, this is like semi-functional. So I think if they released the game without the iron sights, it would just be really peculiar. Now, that's a very mechanical thing. I think they will definitely change, but I think we should move on to something I'm also very passionate about that I can't imagine they will change, but I really, really hope they will. And that's the intro. Now, I'm a certified Fallout 3 intro glazer. I do quite enjoy the intro. I think it is really interesting and I think it really gets you into the world, but I do think you should have the ability to skip it on subsequent playthroughs, because it is, I don't know if you guys ever played Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess is one of my favorite Zelda games, but that intro, oh my goodness. I was watching a retrospective the other day about Twilight Princess, and this weirdo goes on about, it sets you up to understand the stakes of Link's journey, about how it goes on from him being a normal farm boy to the hero of the land. And it's like, I get it. I see what you're trying to do, but buddy, I'm not a professional games journalist or retrospective man. Not when I started like that, Jesus. But my biggest issue with game design philosophy like this, where it's like, oh, frustration is what sells the story to you. The feeling of powerless. You know, most people don't get paid to play games professionally, and I think a lot of people who write about games, I think they don't have enough empathy to understand that most people work jobs they hate and then come home and only have a limited amount of time to play games. I don't want to be forced to, waste 2 hours of my night on some really immersive and really well put together sequence when I just want to run around blasting raiders. This isn't why I'm here. Don't get me wrong, I really do love Fallout 3's intro and Fallout 4's. They set the world up lovely, you know, because it really gets you a sense for the character's normalcy before you're plunged into the madness that is the wasteland. But, you know, I don't know about you, but on Fallout 3 and on Fallout 4, I have a save file I can load that's directly after the intro, but before when it says, hey, do you want to change your character? And it's one of the reasons I think New Vegas is so almost ubiquitously loved, because Doc Mitchell goes like, hey bud, fixed ya, bye, and that's basically it. If you want to ignore the powder ganger stuff, you just kind of can. And I think Fallout 3 and 4 should definitely offer you that freedom to go like, hey, we know you've probably played this game about 8 times. Do you want to skip the intro? I don't think I'm being unreasonable. Again, love these intros. I think they're really, really interesting. But let me skip them, goddammit! The intros for these games, they're kind of like school. When you're sat down in a class and you're being told, right, you've got to learn about this, it's never as fun as when you come back to it later in life and you're like, wow, I'm not being forced to like this. So I'm actually enjoying it because I feel like I can take it at my own pace. That's the way the intros are. If you like the intros or you want to feel immersed for whatever reason, I think you should have the full freedom to go through that intro again. Because I think they are really good intros. But at the same time, if you just want to go hop out into the Raceland, blast some raiders, I think the remake should provide that freedom to you. You shouldn't have to play through them every time you start the game. Because, quite frankly, I want to get to the good stuff a bit quicker sometimes, you know. And speaking about getting to the good stuff quicker, let's talk about how they'll handle the DLCs. So Fallout 4 had this lovely little feature where Automatron wouldn't begin until you were level 15, that's when the encounter with Ada would spawn on the map. And thinking about that reminds me of how what people like to do is they like to rush directly to Operation Anchorage to get the power armor training and all the really high level loot you can get there right at the beginning of the game so they can just trivialize all the challenge. And I wonder if they're gonna fix that in the remake. The outcast signal is only going to begin when you're level 20 or something, because it reminds me of the way before you had the DLCs installed where the boat goes to Point Lookout. like, there's a bunch of Mirelurks there, and then when you install the DLC, suddenly they kill the Mirelurks and the boat's there instead. In the remake, I think it'd be pretty cool if the Mirelurks were there when you were, like, under level 15, and then when you get over level 15, suddenly, is his name Tobar? I think his name's Tobar, but I keep thinking of Tomar from Only Plays. So now I'm imagining Tomar running the boat. I'm Joshua Tomar, I love my little boat. Anyway, when you hit over level 15, Tomar spawns in, and he gets rid of all the Mirelurks, and that's when you get the quest for Point Lookout to be available, so you can't just run there at level 1. Now, I feel like I'm gonna get called the fun police for this, because I'd imagine there's probably a solid chunk of people that enjoy doing the whole Operation Anchorage, get the free power armor right at the start of the game thing, especially considering how broken that power armor is. I'm gonna be honest, I started recording this part of the video, and I felt stronger about it then. I was like, yeah, maybe Todd should have this feature in, but at the same time, it depends how much fun places they want to be, because I think it's kind of funny that you can just run there and get the armor immediately and trivialize it, but this is kind of a problem with DLCs in general. Usually the DLC stuff is like mad OP compared to the base game stuff. So, I don't know. I think they could do it. I think they couldn't do it, and I'd be happy either way. I'm sure there'd be a lot of people that'd be like, wow, this is gay. I don't like not having my free power armor at the start of the game. But speaking of gay power armor, put the pink power armor back in the game. Do it, coward. I'm really not beating the gay accusations with this one, am I? Right, so despite running an entire channel based mostly on Fallout, I know very little about the Elder Scrolls. Quite frankly, I wasn't a huge fantasy guy until fairly recently, so I'm still a little bit new to this, but I'm not sure how much they updated the lore in the Oblivion remake. Now, I know they added some stuff from the DLCs into the base races you can choose. Like, I think you can have, like, mainland Argonians and like from one of the island Argonians or something like that. I don't know. Don't bully me. But I wonder if they'll do the same to certain quests in Fallout 3. Like, there is the very well-known quest where you help the synth, and I wonder how much of the Fallout 4isms they're gonna shove in there. Like, for example, really small thing here, but when you find the synth component in the android, when you kill him, you pull the synth component off him. I wonder if they're gonna like change the little icon to it to the coarser, weird brain chip looking thing you get in Fallout 4. Because I think it's just a box with two little diodes pointing out of it in Fallout 3. So I do wonder if they're going to change that and make it more consistent with Fallout 4. I think there's an argument to be made whether that will be a good thing or a bad thing. Like I mentioned in the beginning, Todd is very sort of like games should be experienced as they were intended. And that's an interesting idea, but like, to an extent, I like the idea of like modifying the game so it reflects the later installments. I know that's a bit of a George Lucas-y thing to do, because he kind of ruined the idea of updating movies with all the Star Wars stuff. But at the same time, I would think it wouldn't hurt to just add a little few tweaks to make the Fallout 3 experience more in line with the Fallout 4 lore. Like, I guess Fallout 4 doesn't really touch 3 too much. It will be mostly that quest with the Institute and the Railroad that you'd need to touch up. But there are only really small things you'd need to touch up, like the aforementioned Pip-Boy icon, and then maybe there's a few things here or there that are slightly inconsistent, but like, you wouldn't want to necessarily have a quest where, I don't know, he throws down one of those, you know those little beacon things that spawn Gen 1 and 2 synths? Like, it'd be a bit weird if you suddenly start pulling those out. Maybe they could add an extra bit of context as to why or how Dr. Lee gets in contact with the Institute after the main quest of Fallout 3, because that always did seem very strange to me. I remember, like, when you walk into the lab for the first time, Dr. Zimmer's like, come on, we must have Dr. Lee help me with finding my synth, and that one lab lady's just like, no one cares about your weird microwave, old man. So it's weird that she goes from like being like barely interested to like, oh, what this? I need to like change my whole life to be based around the Institute now. So like, I would be nice to maybe build up some rapport with that guy and be like, oh, Dr. Zimmer, yes, I would like to go live in the Institute. That sounds pretty sick and epic. But I don't know. This is like a thing Fallout 3 does. It really loves throwing out little bits of lore that imply things happening outside of the Capital Wasteland that I always felt they were just sort of saying just to be like, oh, let's plant ideas for future games and stuff, which is an interesting idea. But looking back on it after like, oh god, almost like 20 years or so, it is just like, a lot of these games never came to fruition. Like, we don't really learn much about Tenpenny unless you want to consider Fallout London, which isn't canon, so we can't. Or, like, a lot of the weird stuff, because Mr. Burke kind of implies he's doing something else besides Tenpenny's bidding in the background. And then you've got the stuff with Karen being all like, oh, I was part of this cult outside that brainwashed people. And you sort of imply, okay, there's stuff going on, but none of that ever came to fruition because we don't have the time to make a million Fallout games, basically. Oh, and I'm adding this on here because I don't think they'll do this in a million billion years, but I would really love for them to add the Fallout 4 power armor into 3, and I know it'll never happen. That would require basically an entire rework of the game. You'd need to make sure the power armor could fit around all the doors, and it would just be such a big change. But the power armor in Fallout 4 is beautiful and amazing, and I love it, and I would just... But, you know, as much as I'd love that to be in, you know, because I think someone made a mod once to put that armor in Fallout New Vegas, and I haven't looked into it too in depth, but it didn't look quite as chunky and as amazing as Fallout 4, which, you know, understandable. It's a mod. They can't always adapt the game as heavily as Bethesda themselves can. In some cases. Sometimes they just can for some reason. But yeah, to end this segment, it would be kind of cute if they put a bunch of little lore references to the games that technically came after 3, but at the same time still affect 3 in terms of the lore. Like, I don't know, this might be a really obscure bit of lore, but like there's a little placard you can find in the Museum of History that says the Stealth Boy was invented by Robert Mayflower. And I do wonder if that was their original name for the creator of Robco. I don't know, I've got literally no evidence to back this up, but I read that after playing New Vegas and thought, huh, I wonder if that's who they originally meant to be the creator of Robco. And then Obsidian came in and were just like, psych, we've got this guy instead. And now you can't overstep Mr. House. Like, I don't care what character you write. There is no character who could be a better CEO of Robco than Mr. House. Just because of how strongly, like, just written and vibesy he is, basically. But yeah, simping for the mega libertarian aside, it's possible they could do it, but also it might get in the way of the experience too much, so I could also see them not doing it. So middle ground, middle ground. And speaking of weird lore changes, only I want them to add, but nobody else does. Can we please get rid of the Enclave Devil power armor? I just don't like it. I know there are some people out there who love it, but like, you can't stand up to the Advanced Power Armor Mark II. Much like I just simped for Robert House right there, I will simp for the Exo 1 power armor. That power armor is beautiful. That power armor of good... See, I had a stroke thinking about how beautiful that power armor was. Some things in life are just that good, that no matter what you do next, you can't top it. You know, no shade to the Enclave Devil power armor. Well, lots of shade. I don't really like it. It looks like Batman. I'm not a big fan of it. But anyway, even if you had like the most amazingly designed power armor in the world, it wouldn't be able to stand up to the Exo 1/Advanced Power Armor Mark II. It's just too beautiful. I remember when playing Tales of Two Wasteland, I came across that encounter where you find that one Enclave guy next to Dukov's house fighting the Rad Roach. And I was like, oh my god, he's wearing the Exo 1 power armor. I came right there and then, just knowing that when the Enclave invaded Project Purity and murdered my father, they would be doing it in perfect, beautiful, sleek Exo 1. And that made me hard. I know it's only me, and literally only me, that thinks this, but, you know, I would like that game significantly better if we got rid of the Devil armor and replaced it with the Exo 1. But it'll never happen because I'm weird. And speaking of how weird I am, and my father, let's talk about... Now, this is another just me thing, surprise, surprise, but was I the only one that kept expecting James to pop up around the end of the game? I'm not sure why. For some reason, I kept thinking he survived. It just felt weirdly in final, the way he dies for some reason. I don't know. It's something I've always had at the back of my head. When I was, like, playing Project Purity, like, doing the mission where you save Project Purity, when I was in the fucking little machine where you sacrifice yourself at the end, I was almost expecting him to come out and be like, I will save your son. Please, do not die for my project. Because... the arc with him, he feels like he just kind of dies out of nowhere, but not like in a really like, oh, this is like meaningful thing. It just kind of feels like they're like, well, we ran out of time in the booth with Liam Neeson, so like, we gotta cut the thing short and we can't afford to get him in for more lines, so he's just gone. I don't know, maybe it's me, but can we fix it? Can we make him feel more final? I don't know if they'll get Liam Neeson back to do the voice. They might need to get an impersonator. He might sound completely different, but I don't know, maybe I'm being weird. Now, I think the most important question to ask is this remake a good idea? And the answer is, who cares? Because quite frankly, you know, I do like the idea of remaking this game. I like the idea of updating it, you know, polishing up the really, really ugly looking graphics and maybe sort of making it look perhaps a little bit closer to the concept art. Now, that is a bit of a slippery slope because there's a bunch of things you could do to change Fallout 3 to make it either more or less appealing. And I think based on the Oblivion one, from what I've seen so far, they seem to have done a pretty good job. They seem to have stayed mostly faithful and not gone off on crazy George Lucas changing everything. Because one of the things I debated putting on this list was changing the lighting engine. But I was like, if they did that, would they make it look more like Fallout 4's? Because Fallout 3 has a very like overcast look to it. There is very rarely a spot of sun in that game. But Fallout 4 suddenly remembers, oh yeah, there's a big glowing thing in the sky that we've got to acknowledge. And would I like Fallout 3 better if it suddenly had sunlight and wasn't cloudy all the time? And I feel like that would kind of kill that game's vibe, because the cloudiness and the weird mugginess of it, to, pardon the pun, but I think it kind of fits the atmosphere of that game, because as much as I like 4 doesn't have the same vibe that 3 or New Vegas does, just because it feels very sort of like, well, we're in the regular world now, there is no like oppressing vibe to this. But maybe if they change that in the game, perhaps that'd be the sort of thing they change. They updated the lighting engine, and I don't think Fallout 3 would be as epic if you changed the vibe of it. Quite frankly, I wouldn't mind too much if they just updated the tech, updated the lighting, made it look less fugly, as long as they didn't mess with it too much, because I think a mostly faithful remake is kind of the ideal. Because although Todd's idea of games should be mostly played the way they should be experienced, although there is a lot of merit in that, I do think at the same time, there's no harm giving it a fresh coat of paint, as long as you don't start going off in a weird direction and adding random stuff in there that really doesn't make any sense. As long as you can play the game without mods, that's all I care about. But it's Bethesda, so we know what the likelihood of that is.